Hey guys, so it's the end of May, so it's time for another wrap up. Yay! And then after the wrap up, I'm going to give you guys my June TBR. I'm going to start with the first book I finished this month, which is Brotherhood of the Wolf by David Farland. It is the second book in the Rune Lord saga. I already have posted a review about this, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. This is the first book I finished this month. I think I had by the time the month started, I had 60 pages or something left to read, so I finished it right at the beginning of the month. And I'm liking the series so far. I just kind of needed a break from it because I felt like if I kept going with it and tried to binge it, I was going to get overwhelmed. I was going to get bored. So this was the only Rune Lords book I read this month, and it was the first book I finished this month. The next three books I'm going to tell you guys about are the three books that I finished during the One Readathon to Rule Them All. I already have a wrap-up video posted for that too, so again, I'm not going to talk too much about these. The first one that I finished was My Neighbor Totoro by Hayao Miyazaki. Second one was Wolves of the Kala by Stephen King, and the third one technically is kind of cheating because it's in an omnibus edition, but I'm counting it as a whole book because it is technically three books in one, and that was The 100,000 Kingdoms, which is the first book in the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. The next book I finished this month was Firestarter by Stephen King. And that was the Stephen King read-along book of the month for May. And then the next two that I finished, I audiobooked these, was The Wind Through the Keyhole and Song of Susanna by Stephen King. After I finish the seventh book, I'm going to do a whole series wrap-up for these, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth about these right now. Wind Through the Keyhole is all I'm going to say about these is Wind Through the Keyhole is kind of like a filler between Wizard and Glass and Wolves of the Kala. I felt like it really didn't add a whole lot to the Dark Tower series as a whole. I mean, it was a nice just side thing. You don't need to read it necessarily if you're reading the series, but if you just want something that doesn't really have a whole lot of intensity to it, I guess, or that isn't really, you just need a break from the main plot, then this is a good squeeze in halfway through the series just to kind of give you a little bit of a break from the main plot and of a little bit more background on Roland and some of his culture from Gilead. And that, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, are all of the books that I read in May. Real quick before I get into my June TBR, in my last book haul, I had shown you guys a book that I had pre-ordered, and it was called War of Vengeance, and it is the newest book in the Warhammer Chronicles series, and the cover I showed was just this blue, it was a black background with a blue circle. I don't know, I'm describing this really horribly, with an elf on the cover, and I actually got it in the mail today, and the cover is not that, it is actually different. It looks like this, and I like this better than the pre-order cover. So yeah, but I just kind of wanted to throw that in there because I know I put it up in my last haul because I had pre-ordered it before, but I hadn't gotten it in the mail yet. I just got it in the mail today. So I just kind of wanted to throw that in the middle just to be like, woohoo, I got another book. And then the books I'm planning on reading for June. I've got a few already started. And the first one I started this Sunday because I'm just, let me rewind a second and explain why I was kind of in a slump. I picked up, the other book I picked up this month was Cinda Williams Chima's The Demon King, and I had plans to binge all 4 books and just read them all the way through because there were only 4 books in the Seven Realms series, and it was short. They were fairly short, and the font was fairly large for the pages, and I did not care for it. I made it about, let me see, I made it about, pulling it up on Goodreads, if I could find it on Goodreads. I think I probably made it about 2/3 of the way through the book, and I just, about through the first book, which is called The Demon King, and I didn't care for it. There's the cover. I didn't care for it just for the simple fact, and I'm going to throw a spoiler alert in here for those of you that haven't read this series. It seems like just about everybody has read Zinda Williams-Chima's books, but if you haven't, spoiler warning. I was liking it until about halfway through, when you were only following Hansen / Hunt alone and Ryza, who is the princess heir. And then there comes a point in the book, with Ryza's portions of the book, that she is flirting with the wizard's son, which is a big no-no, and then she's flirting with the Queensguard's son, and then she has this bright idea to go and see the worst part of the city at night without an escort or a guard or anything. She just wants to go by herself, and Eamon, who is the Queensguard captain's son, says, no, you at least need a guard, and you are not going at night. You need to go during the day, and you need to have a guard with you because that part of town is horrible. And she's like, no, I want to see how it is with, them putting on faces just because the princess heir is coming and they want to look like everything's all hunky-dory. And no, you can't do that. Something is going to happen if you do that and you go by yourself. No, I'm not going to let you go. She goes, I'm going by myself, whether you like it or not. And she basically manipulates him into going with her, even though he knows and he's trying to explain to her that it is going to be a bad idea. And I got so mad that through that point that I basically threw the book down and was like, no, not going any further with this. And then I gave it a couple of days and I picked it back up again, and I thought there was going to be a redeeming factor coming, and I didn't see it. I actually got into a place where I posted an update about this on Goodreads, where you get that feeling that when you're following a guy's perspective and a girl's perspective, something is going to happen to bring those two together, and then something else is going to happen to make them fall in love with each other, or they are going to just end up falling in love with each other. I was half right. Actually, I was 3/4 of the way right, because not only does Hansen, however you want to call him, kidnap her while she is in the nasty part of town, but then he starts to fall for her. And I was just like, no, I didn't want this in this book. It was too predictable. So I'm just like, nope, I'm done. I'm DNFing this book. I'm DNFing this series. I've already unhauled the series. I am not going to even touch that stack ever again. I did not get rid of the rest of my Zinda Williams-Chima books. I still have the first and the third book, Air Chronicles, that I will eventually read, and the first book in the Shattered Realms series. I'm not completely giving up on Zinda Williams-Chima. I'm just not a huge fan of her Seven Realms series. And I think part of that and part of why I feel how I do is that I just found it at too late a point in my life Like, just to give some context, I'll be 25 in November, and I feel like I found this at the wrong point in time in my life. If I would have found this 10 years ago, I think I really would have liked the series. Because 10 years ago, I was reading Twilight and really liked Twilight until the movies came out and ruined it. And then I couldn't stand Twilight anymore. But back when I was actually into YA about 10 years ago, I think I would have really liked the series if I would have found it then, but I didn't. So I think that kind of influenced me a little bit, but I mean, y'all can hate if you want. I'm not giving up on Cinda Williams Chima, I'm just giving up on Seven Realms. So, into my June TBR. First book on my June TBR, I started on Sunday because I was in a slump, kind of still in a slump because of Demon King. And I only got through the prologue chapter in this book. And it is Wizard Born by David Farland, which is the third book in the Rune Lord series. I think what I'm going to start doing with this is just reading like one a month. And I have 6 books left, so I should finish it by the end of the year. The last 4 books are about half as long as the first 4 books each, so I may get through those a little bit faster. They don't look as dense, and because this one is right in the nose of 500 pages, and the print in these is itty bitty, so it's a lot, and it takes me a while to read these, but I might start the 4th one after this. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how I feel, if I feel like I can handle another David Farland book after this one, or if I just need another little break, and I will pick the 4th one up next in July. But for now, Wizard Born by David Farland. Next book on my TBR is going to finish off the Dark Tower series. It is the 7th book called The Dark Tower. I'm audiobooking this, and after I finish this audiobook, then I will do my series wrap-up of the Dark Tower series, and then I don't know what I'm going to audiobook marathon after that. It might be the Titus Groan trilogy, by Mark Peavy, I think is his name. I know it starts with an M and his last name starts with a P. But I might marathon that trilogy, or I might try Throne of Glass, or the Lunar Chronicles, or the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. I might try the first book of that. I don't know yet. We'll see what I feel like, and then we'll go from there. But that will be the last book in the Dark Tower series, and then I will do my series wrap-up for that and call it good for the Dark Tower series. The next book I'm reading is the June Stephen King read-along book of the month, and that is Thinner by Stephen King. I don't know a whole lot about this book other than the main character is really overweight and he eats this pie, and then he starts losing weight to the point that it gets unhealthy, and that's really all I know about this book. I never really had an inclination to pick it up before now, but I read like a chapter or so-ish. Yeah, I read a chapter. I'm on page 14, which is chapter 2. And it's getting... It might be intriguing as it goes on. I'm not sure yet, but I'm not going to down Stephen King's books. I love Stephen King's books, so that's part of why I joined this read-along. And, yeah, this is the June book for the Stephen King read-along. I've linked it in prior videos, and I believe I also have the link on my channel, so you can go check that out, and it is linked in my groups. It's on my groups in my Goodreads channel, on my Goodreads page, which I know is linked to my channel also. So definitely go check that out, and if you like Stephen King, join us, because the whole list for the year is already out, so you'll know exactly what we're reading every month, and it's great. It's nice to talk about these books with other people that like Stephen King as much as you do, and it's a good motivation to read more books. But anyways, so Thinner by Stephen King. Next book I started last month after the one readathon, and I said I was going to start it after the one readathon, and I did, and I'm really enjoying it so far, but I've kind of taken a break from it because of the whole Demon King issue and how I got into a slump, and I really didn't want to pick up another really big, heavy book. I didn't want to pick up another book after that point, and that is Malice by John Gwynne. That is the first book in the Faithful and the Fallen series. I am 159 pages in, so I'm liking it so far. It's kind of slow still, like we're still kind of, like things are happening but not on a grand scale kind of place that we're in right now, but I am liking it. I like that the chapters are really short. I think the longest chapter I have read so far was like 5 or 6 pages. So it's nice to have those breaks. And then I also like how when you switch back and forth to characters, there's not a huge time jump from one chapter of a character to the next chapter of that same character. Most of the time, the chapters for each character pick up right where the last one for them left off, which is really nice because I hate having time gaps and not knowing what happened in those time gaps. I mean, it could just be nothing that happened in those time gaps, but I'd at least like just a tiny little, this is what happened between, you know, then and there. So, and this does that, and it's really nice, and I'm really liking it. And I'm taking my time on this because I only have the first 2 right now, and I don't want to just hammer through this one and the second one before I get the 3rd and 4th one. So I'm kind of taking my time on this. I probably won't finish it this month, but we'll see where I end up, because this is kind of lower on my list of priorities for the month right now. And the last book that I am currently reading this month, this is at the top of my priority list right now, is Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. And I found this in, this picture's really bad. I'm sorry guys, this picture's really bad. But I found out about this in, I was reading a book, I was watching a video on Clara Reads Books channel, and it was books to get you out of a slump, and that book was on her list, and I had just gotten it from the Kindle store a couple of days before that, and I was like, oh, well, I've got it now, I'll give it a try. And I am just absolutely loving it. I love the footnotes that are in there, which is to give that little extra bit of information that you might want or need as background information on different like factions and different, just a lot of different things. And then I'm also liking the dark humor a lot. There is a lot of dark humor in this book. It is not, it is for adults. Like, I mean, if you like mature content, it's not like smutty or anything like that. It's just kind of, it's more adult than most of the stuff I've read recently. But it is really good, and I really like it. And Friday I am going to get God's Grave, which is the second book. I'm going to buy that one on ebook, and I'm going to pre-order the 3rd one. I can't remember what the 3rd one's called right off the top of my head, but it comes out in September. And I think if I can marathon Nevernight and God's Grave before it comes out, then I will be prepared for the 3rd one when it comes out in September. So that is all of the books I read in May and all of the books I am planning on reading in June. Let me know down in the comments either something you guys read in May or something you guys are planning on reading in June, or going back to that list of audiobooks that I'm not quite sure if I'm going to get to or not this month after Dark Tower. If you guys have any suggestions or recommendations out of that list on where to start, or what ones you guys would like me to get to first, let me know down in the comments, and I will catch you guys later in my next video. Bye!